this webinar series on Western philosophy. Especially today, we'll be looking into the philosophy of Kant, wherein we have gone through some weeks wherein we have been looking into the philosophy of Kant. During the course of the last lecture, Professor Das spoke of the transcendental analytic. Today, Professor Das is going to speak on the transcendental dialectic. Well, during the course of the last lecture, we could learn two important things. One is the transcendental synthetic unity of a perception and the schematism of categories. And what is more important that I could learn is the primacy of time over space. Well, normally we do understand that space and time are the a priori forms of intuition. But one more addition to whatever we had learned from Kant, but Professor Das could make it clear during the course of the last lecture how time series, time order, and the possibility of existence in time makes very good sense in the philosophy of Kant, and that's how he takes time to be more fundamental. That we have seen during the course of the last lecture. Well, today Professor Das will be speaking on the transcendental dialectic, wherein he will be speaking on the speculative psychology, paralogisms, and one more thing will be speaking on the illusions of the self. So, without wasting much time, let us move to Professor Das for the lecture. Over to Professor Das.
Namaskar, Dr. Rao, very esteemed participants of this session. Today we have a very beautiful topic, that is transcendental dialectic. In the last session, as Dr. Rao said, we were discussing about transcendental analytic, and we had discussed how everything can be schematized by time. That means everything comes within a format of knowing, and time is the most basic, fundamental, a priori form of intuition, which not only regulates perception, but also the concepts. That was the development in Kantian philosophy that we had discussed in the last class. Generally, we suppose that space and time are a priori conditions of perception, and when we are talking about categories of understanding, then there is no role of space and time. Immanuel Kant says that yes, space, the role of space ends at a point, but the role of time continues, even when we discuss about concepts. For any conceptualization, time is an a priori condition. That means our knowledge is conditioned. Our knowledge is conditioned. That is the point. Whatever we know, that is conditional, that is conditioned. But human mind has an urge to know the unconditioned. So here there is a transition from conditioned to unconditioned. Even if we say that time conditions everything, every step of knowing, every object of knowledge is conditioned by time, then the question comes, is there anything which is unconditioned? This is an wonder. This is this is an interest for man, because human mind is not satisfied with only conditioned epistemology. Human mind wonders about the status of unconditioned. That what is beyond time, what is beyond categories. So, but the problem is that man has no ladder, man has no assets, man has no access to reach that land, because whatever we know, we have to know through the format of knowing. Therefore, our knowing is conditioned, our epistemology is conditioned, our object of knowledge is conditioned. Then what is unconditioned? Is there anything unconditioned? Immanuel Kant is saying, beyond understanding, there is another faculty in man which is called reason. Immanuel Kant uses some words which have different meaning. Generally, we know what is reason. When we say reason is the source of knowledge, in the philosophy of Descartes, Spinoza, Leibniz, there the meaning of reason is something different. But here, reason is a very special term. It is a specific term which is used in a different way. Similarly, the word transcendental, that is used in a different way. The word aesthetic, that is used in a different sense. The word analytic, that is used in a different sense. The word dialectic, that is used in a different sense. Many words are there which are technically used in Kantian philosophy, having its own connotation, its own meaning. So here, Immanuel Kant speaks of three faculties of knowing. One is only two faculties of knowing, sensibility and understanding. But he is speaking about reason, that is another faculty. We can't say that is the faculty of knowing, but that is the faculty of inferring. What we can't know, we can infer. That is called anumano. Anu means after, mano means knowledge. After knowledge means to know something after knowing something. To know the conclusion after knowing the premises. In material inference also we do that. We know something after knowing something. That means we know X, and from that knowledge we infer Y. So this is called inference. In formal inference also we do that. We know the premises, then we know the conclusion. That means if we know the premises, we try to know the conclusion by logical rules. And in material inference, we infer by the help of law of causation and law of uniformity of nature. But that is inference. Inference means to know something which is unknown, to know the unknown, or to infer the unknown from the known. Immanuel Kant is saying that inference is not knowledge. Inference is inference. If you infer, then that is not, that you can't say that you know. So if there is a knowledge claim, then you will discuss about sensibility and understanding. When we are talking about inference, you don't have any knowledge claim. That may be true, that may be false. Inference is always probable. Inductive inference is probable, deductive inference is certain, but that certainty has no meaning because it is analytical. Because it has no new information. So whatever is given in a circular implication, that is not knowledge. So inference, be it deductive or inductive, it is not knowledge according to Kant. So that is reason. So by reason, we can infer. By sensibility and understanding, we can know. So there is a difference between knowing and inferring. This is the point of difference. So when we are discussing about dialectics, transcendental dialectics, we are transcending these two formats of knowing, sensibility and understanding, and we are discussing about inferring. We are discussing about reason, sensibility, understanding, then reason. So reason is another faculty which satisfies the unconditioned, the knowledge of the unconditioned, or the inference about the unconditioned. Because this is the inner urge of man to know the unconditioned, to know about the immortality of soul, to know about the world. To know, world means the real world, the thing in itself, the totality, and to know God. So when we think of a soul, here we are talking about the absolute spirit. Was in the last class, Dr. Anurima Bhattacharya was asking the question about the permanent self, the that there might have been some logic behind it to claim the existence of the permanent self. Exactly that question is discussed today. Yes, there is a scope for discussing about permanent self, but its methodology is different. Because we can't discuss about the supreme self or pure consciousness or the absolute spirit in whatever name we know it, we call it. That cannot be known through space and time and through any categories of understanding. That cannot be. Because whatever is known through space and time and the 12 categories of understanding, they are bound to be conditioned. There is a difference between conditioned and unconditioned. What is the general definition of soul? Soul is unconditioned. That is the supreme spirit. That is pure consciousness. So that is unconditioned. So we can't have knowledge claim of the Supreme Spirit because our knowledge claim is confined to the conditions. So we shall speak about the conditional self, that is the logical self or empirical self. We can speak about the conditioned world, that means the phenomenal world. And we can't speak about the unconditioned supreme being, that is God. So self, the pure self, or the supreme, the supreme spirit or mind, and the totality of the world. Totality means what we perceive and what we do not perceive. The totality of the world and the original being, that is God. These three are three principles according to Immanuel Kant. These three are three principles through which we give many types of speculations, we give many types of interpretations, and we build many philosophical systems. Because this is human tendency to think about the unconditioned, and these are the three unconditioned entities. The self. Self means the supreme self, the absolute self, not the logical self, and the total world, whatever is seen and whatever is unseen, and the total being, that is God. Total consciousness, total world or existence, and total being, that is God. These three are basic principles through which we give different types of speculations and we build different types of philosophical. We give interpretations about different philosophical systems through these three principles: principle of self, principle of God, and principle of world. Immanuel Kant is claiming that whatever is not sanctioned by sensibility and understanding, that is not knowledge, or we can't have the knowledge claim. If so, then any claim beyond this format is an illusion. That means we have another faculty in mind, that is the reason faculty, and by that reason faculty we can think about the unconditioned, and that is that is illusory in the sense because they are not grounded in the sensibility. That means they are not percepts. They are not perceived. Because whatever is not perceived, that cannot be supplied to categories of understanding, and we can't have any judgment. So any statement about the unconditioned is an illusion. So Immanuel Kant is speaking about three types of illusions, three types of illusionist speculations, that is speculative psychology, speculative cosmology, and speculative theology. When we speculate, when we go beyond logic, when we go beyond format, so when our mind roams freely without obeying any format means the rules. Everything has its own rule. If we shall not follow any rule, then we are free. So if our mind is not guided by any rule, and if our mind is free to think anything it likes, then it lands in three types of illusions. One is the supreme mind or supreme consciousness or the absolute spirit, and the other is the world, and the third one is God or the supreme being, the most perfect being, the highest intellect. wisdom, that is the highest being, highest possibility. What in Upanishad we say, it is Sachidananda, it is Brahman. Brahman is the highest reality. So is there such a thing which we can call God, which we can call God, or we can call the real world? Real world means the total world and the real self. So this is the question. So generally, when as we were discussing in the last class in the interactive session, that why should we start from epistemology? That is another way of starting. That in philosophy we can start from metaphysics. There are two types of starting philosophical discussion. We can start from epistemology. We can start from metaphysics. Upanishadic teachings, Upanishadic declarations, these discussions start from metaphysical point of view. So they think about this, what is truth? What is truth? Truth is that which cannot be contradicted, that means satyam abadhitam. So they start from this assumption that something is there, therefore we can understand the relativity. The changes can be understood if we can realize that there is an unchanging reality. So this is a metaphysical starting. But critical philosophers, they think that this is a dogmatic approach. Without scrutinizing, without criticizing, without verifying the limit of human knowledge, why should we start our philosophical journey for metaphysics? So let us start from our limitation. What we have. Suppose I have 10 rupees. Then I shall calculate how much I can spend. So why should we start our, why should I think of spending 100 rupees when I have 10 rupees? That means if my knowing capacity, my limitation of knowing, it's very less. I am very much limited. So from that, why should we discuss about metaphysics? So many philosophers, they are silent about metaphysics. Many are critical about metaphysics. They focus on epistemology. Epistemology means they focus on the limit of human knowledge. So what can I know? What is the format of my knowing? What is the limitation of my knowing? So from this starting, we can't have any access to metaphysics. But the other way is starting from metaphysics. So there are two types of starting. One is the metaphysical starting and the other is the epistemological starting. So Immanuel Kant started his philosophical inquiry from epistemology. Therefore, he is very much critical about that which cannot be assessed by our epistemology. What is the base? What is the asset? That is our knowledge, that is our epistemology, what best we can know. So this is the difference. The metaphysical philosophers like Hegel, many, Descartes, Spinoza, Leibniz, Vedanta, Sankhya system, all metaphysical philosophers, they have started philosophy from metaphysics. So they define what is truth and what is falsity. What is truth? The truth is that which cannot be contradicted. So they also give logic to that, truth cannot be contradicted, this cannot be denied. So truth means the non-contradictory entity. So if we start from this, then we have to we have to admit that there is an ultimate soul, there is an ultimate reality. Spinoza said that is substance. Leibniz said that is there are monads. Descartes also said God is the ultimate substance. Vedanta said Brahman is the ultimate reality. So this is the metaphysical starting and metaphysical conclusion. But if we shall start our philosophical inquiry from epistemology, from epistemology, then such metaphysical discussions will not come. Metaphysical discussions will be discussed in different ways. So, in that different way, Immanuel Kant is discussing that he is saying that if you go beyond sensibility and understanding, if you are going to apply your reason, then you will land on illusions. And there are three types of illusions. And he is saying that in syllogism, there are three types of syllogism. Categorical syllogism, hypothetical syllogism, and disjunctive syllogism. Categorical, hypothetical, and disjunctive syllogism. Immanuel Kant is trying to prove everything logically. He is saying that everything can be proved logically. So and fallacy takes place when we misinterpret logic. So fallacy is the consequence of result of misinterpretation of logic. So we have man can use logic, but man can misuse logic too. So the misuse of logic leads to illusion. So out of these three types of syllogism, he has developed three types of concept. From categorical syllogism, he has developed the concept of soul, and from disjunctive syllogism, he has developed the concept of world, and from the alternative and disjunctive syllogism, he has categorical, hypothetical, and disjunctive. From categorical syllogism, he has developed the concept of soul. From hypothetical syllogism, he has developed the concept of world, and from the disjunctive syllogism, he has developed the concept of God. And he is saying that these are three illusions. So we shall discuss the other two illusions in the next session about world and God. But today we shall discuss about paralogism, that is the illusion of the self, which is followed from the categorical syllogism. Categorical syllogism, but Immanuel Kant is claiming about the existence of the self, or existence of a supreme mind or a supreme self that we can infer, because any syllogism, that is only an inference. So inference is not knowledge. Therefore, inference leads to illusion. Any knowledge, any inferential knowledge is illusory. So he is also using these four points, as we had discussed in the last session, that there are four types of categories. One is the quantity, quality, relation, and modality. And he is saying that from the category of quantity, we can say that the soul is substance. Soul is substance, that I am aware of myself as a substance and never a predicate. And from quality, he is saying that the soul is simple. Soul is simple means soul is one, soul is infinite. These are the qualities of soul. And from relation, he is saying that the self continues to be the same identical unity through the different times. in which it exists. As we had discussed about the synthetic unity of our perception, similarly, Immanuel Kant is saying something continues in the discrete sensations. In every changes, the something continues, and that is the self. So when we shall relate all the discrete, how can we make a relation between two discrete sensations? If there is a permanent thing, if there is a continuous self, then we can relate perception X to perception Y. So in the series of perceptions, that is, series means change. In the changing series of perceptions, there is a continuing self which relates all these changing or discrete sensations. So that is the category of relation. And according to modality, he is speaking about possibility. That self is the highest possible possibility, and self alone is immediately given in our consciousness, and all other things are mere inferences from perceptions in our consciousness. So whatever is immediately about which we become immediately aware, that is self consciousness. Because before we perceive anything, before we conceive anything, first we become aware of ourself. So self is the highest possibility of all types of perception and conception. Whenever we are going to perceive something, first I exist. As Descartes said, I exist, therefore I think. I think, therefore I exist, he said. But after that what he proved? I exist, therefore I think. You see this difference. Descartes' cogito ergo sum means I think, therefore I exist. But what does it exactly mean? I think, therefore I exist. But it exactly means that I exist, therefore I think. That means whatever I think, whatever I perceive, first I exist. So that existence of self is prior to any type of a perception and a conception. But the difference between Descartes and Immanuel Kant is that continuous self who is engaged in all types of perception and conception, and which existence is prior to all types of perception and conception, that is a logical self. That is a logical self. But why it is fallacious, why it is erroneous, why it is illusory, we mistake that logical self to the permanent self. So the possibility of self is there, because Immanuel Kant is speaking about synthetic unity of our perception. So Immanuel Kant admits that there is a conscious thing, there is a conscious entity which is prior to all types of perception and conception. It is true. But that self is a logical self. That is not the permanent self. But this logical self is misinterpreted as the permanent self. Therefore, it is illusion. Therefore, it is called speculative psychology. Similarly, we shall discuss speculative cosmology. What is not speculative? What is not speculative? If we take the self as the logical self, then it is logical. It is logical, it is rational, we can say. But from that, if we claim that it is not the logical self, it is the permanent self, then it is illusory or it is speculative. So, what we are going to discuss, the point is that by applying regime, we have a scope to think about the unconditioned, But that thinking is a fallacy. That thinking is not logical. That thinking is a fallacy, and we are trying to put the claim of metaphysics forcefully by the application of a logic, but which does not suit at all, which does not fit into that logic, because from the application of logic we can explain only the phenomenal world. By the application of the pure forms of intuition and the 12 categories of understanding, we can have a very clear and a distinct knowledge about the phenomena. But beyond that, we can only think, we can't know. Immanuel Kant is making a difference between knowing and thinking. Knowing and thinking, or knowing and inferring. We can think about the metaphysics, we can think about noumena, we can think about something permanent, we can think about something unconditioned, but we can't claim that logically, because logical tools do not permit to accommodate the metaphysics. This is the point. So paralogism is a fallacy, and there are 4 types of fallacious statements, that is about quantity, quality, relation, and modality. So from the quantity, we have an illusory statement that there must be the totality, total quantity, that is substance. So this is a fallacy, because here quantity is a logical format. Here we don't mean quantity means real quantity, that this mountain is the quantity, the whole jagat is the quantity. In that sense, we don't use the word quantity, as Dr. Rao also very beautifully explained in the last session, that these are logical formats. So quantity is here is a logical format. From that, we should not misunderstand that it is the objective quantity. It is logical quantity. So from that we should not misinterpret, and we should not have an illusory statement that it is the total quantity, that I am the substance. I am the substance. The soul is substance. This is a wrong conception. Similarly, when we are talking about quality, here also it is a logical concept, a logical format. From that we can't describe the soul, that it is one, it is infinite, it is eternal, it is simple. In that way we can't give any statement. If we give, that is illusory statement. That is not the logical statement. Similarly, relation is a logical relation. How 2 concepts are related. So here we should not make the factual relation that self continues to be the same identical unity through the different times. Yes, it is true, but this continuity is a logical continuity. Synthetic unity of perception, this develops. This speaks about a relation. This speaks about a relation. It is a time relation, because I had said in the last session, in mathematics also, when we write 1, we cannot write 100 ones over 1. If we do so, that is only 1. So in order to have an addition or a subtraction, then we have to use space. We have to use time. 1, then another 1. So here we use 2 space, 2 time. Therefore we can add these 2 ones, or we can do any type of a mathematical function, and that is possible. That means this relation in spatio-temporal order is a logical relation. It is not the real relation. But if we confuse the logical relation to be the real relation, then we shall say that whatever continues in our perception, in our conception, that is the permanent relation or permanent self. Because it can make relation. Only the permanent self can make a relation. So that is an illusion. We should not mistake the logical to the metaphysical. And similarly, when we speak of a modality, that is about possibility. So here also, it is true that the self is it is the highest possibility, the possibility of a perception, that myself is perceived first. Myself is conceived first. Before I perceive anything, first I perceive myself. This possibility is there, and that is modality. But from that we should not interpret that this is the supreme self and this is the highest possibility. So we should not misuse the logical formats, and we conclude that there are metaphysical entities like self, world, and God. When we are talking about self this way, that is called the fallacy, that is called paralogism. Paralogism means a fallacy, fallacious statement. And this fallacious statement is advanced to prove the existence of self by using four logical concepts. They are quantity, quality, relation, and modality. And when we shall discuss about speculative cosmology, there also that is called antinomy. That is called antinomies. There we shall discuss that is also another type of a fallacy that we shall discuss in the next session. But just I am giving an introduction to that. So that is also another illusory. That is illusory. Transcendental deduction means, what is the exact meaning of transcendental deduction? Transcendental deduction means the logic of illusion. So these are very technically used. Such words are very technically used when we are discussing about the transcendental dialectic. Here the word dialectic is not used as it is used in other systems. Transcendental dialectic means it is the logic of illusion. So if our thought is illusory, if we have some fallacious statements, it has also its logic, and that is called transcendental deduction. What is the logic? And this is the logic of paralogism, the logic of antinomies, and the ideals of reason. Ideals of reason is about God. Antinomies are about world, and paralogism is about self. So when we are discussing about categorical syllogism, in what we do in categorical syllogism, we derive the conclusion categorically from the premises. Categorically, not hypothetically, not in other way. We derive the conclusion categorically from the premises. If all men are mortal, if Ram is a man, then Ram is mortal. Whether all men are mortal is true or false, we don't know. Whether Ram is a man is true or false, we don't know. Or we can say in categorical syllogism, we have to see whether the conclusion follows from the premises logically or not. If it logically follows, then we can have a proper deduction. So in that way, we cannot deduce categorically the existence of a self. This is not warranted, because through logical deduction we can't have any claim for the permanent self, because it is impossible. And if we do so, then our claim is illusory. Our claim is not valid. That is not rational. That is speculative. That is a speculative claim. Therefore, it is called speculative psychology. It is not rational psychology, it is speculative psychology. So this way, Immanuel Kant is speaking about the existence of soul. So what is the conclusion? The conclusion is that Immanuel Kant is not speaking about the permanent self, the metaphysical self, as it is discussed in Vedanta. But Immanuel Kant is accepting the fact that there is something which continues through all types of a perception and conception, but that continuity is a logical continuity. We should not confuse the logical continuity to the metaphysical continuity, logical quantity to the metaphysical quantity, logical quality to the metaphysical quality, logical relation to the metaphysical relation, logical modality or possibility to the metaphysical possibility. If we do so, then we are committing fallacy. So out of that fallacy, we are speaking about self, world, and a God. But this is transcendental dialectic. But in Immanuel Kant wrote another book that is called Critique of Practical Reason. There he will say that it is proved in Critique of Pure Reason. Now we are discussing Critique of Pure Reason. In the Critique of Pure Reason, Transcendental Dialectic is discussed. In Critique of Practical Reason, Transcendental Dialectic is also discussed. But what is the difference? In Critique of Pure Reason, when we are discussing about Transcendental Dialectic, we are giving focus on the logical applications, and by that we reject the metaphysical status. But in the Critique of Practical Reason, we shall give focus on the metaphysics. And Immanuel Kant is saying that there our logic will be different. There we shall speak about faith. So in that dialectic, what will come? Sensibility, understanding, and faith. So when sensibility and understanding will be because man is a very wonderful animal, because man is not satisfied with any fixed rules. So when we have logical claims, we can speak logically. We can speak about the limit of epistemology. What can we know logically? That discussion is good. But beyond that, man has emotion, man has his society, man has fellow feeling, man has his family, man has his friend circle, man has man has morality too. So morality will come. So man has because morality is subject to society, because when we live together, there is a sense of morality. Suppose I am alone, I am living in a jungle, there is no sense of morality. So when we are discussing about the other aspects of a human being, there we shall land to the another domain, that is he calls the faith, that we can believe in God, we can believe in a total world, and we can believe in the supreme self or mind, and that is very much pragmatic. And Immanuel Kant is saying that there are postulates of morality. If you don't, why it is pragmatic? Because if you don't believe in God, that may be illusory, that may be metaphysical, but that has pragmatic importance on human life, because that is the postulate of morality. If you don't believe in God, you can't be moral. That we shall discuss later on in the last session we shall discuss that how existence of God is the postulate of morality, how the existence of soul is the postulate of morality, how freedom of will is the postulate of morality. So these world, soul, God, freedom of will, they may be metaphysical, they may be illusory, but they have a pragmatic importance on human life. So they should be entertained. They should be they have their own importance on human life, on society. So by faith we can speak about the Supreme Spirit. By faith we can speak about the total manifestation of Jagat, and by faith we can believe any god or goddess in 33 crores of gods, or in one Allah, or in one Jesus, any form you are free to believe in any form. You have that freedom. And so far as your morality is concerned, you can also believe, you can make these three as these three which are illusory, which are metaphysical, but you can take them as the postulate of morality. You can justify morality by these three postulations. So they have pragmatic value. But these three cannot be claimed logically. This is the difference between pure reason and practical reason. We shall discuss later on. So today what we discussed about transcendental dialectic. Transcendental dialectic is the logic of illusion. Illusion takes place when we misuse logic. Logic of illusion takes place when we misuse logic. If we put everything in the categorical syllogism, hypothetical syllogism, and disjunctive syllogism, or the logical formats of quantity, quality, relation, and modality, then that is a misuse of logic. So forcefully we cannot establish metaphysics by the application of logic. If we do that, then that is fallacy. But that does not mean they don't have any value in our practical life. They have a value in another situation. That is our personal life. That is our emotional life. That is our social life. That is our family life. In that, we can have a very beautiful coordination with such metaphysical beliefs. But be very careful when you are talking about epistemology, when we are talking about logic, when we are talking about epistemology and logic. Don't give room to accommodate speculations, dogmas, metaphysics. Don't do that. Be very much critical when you are talking about epistemology and logic. But when we are talking, therefore, in philosophy of religion, we know that religion has its own language. Religion has its own language. Religious language is symbolic. Religion language has emotive meaning. We have discussed that. And they have social impact is also there. That means when we are discussing about religious language, we should not discuss that through pure reason or pure logic or logical rules. So we have to understand what we are discussing, what we are going to understand. That we have to understand. That what is the object of my understanding? If we are discussing about logic and epistemology, we have a particular type of understanding. If we have another type of discussion, or we are discussing about morality or religion or society or our family, that has another type of discussion. Their methodology is different, ideology is different. So we should not confuse between these two models, the metaphysical model and the logical model. So according to the metaphysical model, world, God, and soul, they can be believed. They can't be logically claimed. But according to the logical model, we can have only access to the phenomenal world. Whatever is perceived through sensibility. So knowledge starts from sensibility, then proceeds to the understanding, then ends in reason. So reason can only regulate. Reason can only regulate. It has a regulative power. It does not have any logical power. It has no contribution in the logic. So through that reason, we have a free access to think about the anything permanent, anything substance. But that is a fallacious attempt. That attempt is a fallacious. That attempt is illusory. If it is undertaken by logical methodology. With this, I stop here. In the next session, we shall go to. I am not discussing the other two illusions, because antinomy. It is a long discussion. We have to discuss that very carefully. Antinomies and existence of God. There are three proofs Immanuel Kant is giving, and Immanuel Kant is also proving that all these three proofs for the existence of God are fallacious. Generally, we give different proofs in order to prove the existence of God. But Immanuel Kant has given three proofs in order to prove that they are fallacious. So that discussion is very interesting. So we should discuss part by part. So let us stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Das, for your nice lecture. Well, the three states, say the sensibility, understanding, and reason. When we talk of reason, it is something beyond our categories, and for Kant, reason is nothing but inference. So inference, as we know, it is a sort of is something, and God. Now today you restricted yourself to the paralogism, wherein you talked of four fallacies. While you were addressing the lecture, I was just thinking how to address these issues, especially the fallacious statement with reference to the self. You see, when you talk of quantity and you say totality, so when you talk of totality, the logical totality is something different from the totality that we normally understand. The world as a whole, the way Bradley will take, the way Hegel will take, the world as a whole. Okay, so there the question of metaphysical self and all this, they will come into question. But Kant, being very much conditioned to the categories, well, when he's talking of reason, and he's trying to see this reason through the categories, through these categories of quantity, quality, relation, and modality. And when we talk of totality, we need to understand this totality is not generality. It is a sort of universality. So a distinction needs to be made between universality and generality. You see, when you talk of universality, when I say all planets, I can cover all planets. But when I say all crows, you can never come across all crows. So there lies a difference. But when you talk of all crows, we are making a general assumption. It's a totality. Okay, so that sort of totality cannot be talked of, say outside the format of this rational thing. I mean the categories. So there lies the problem with the question of totality by taking the quantity, the category of quantity. But when you take the category of quality, you say quality. You see, we under quality we have three types of statements. Say affirmative statement, negative statement, and the infinite statement. Now, when you say self is infinite, there lies the problem. Because then the proposition will be of the sort S is not P. You see, the predicate is an indefinite negative term. So the predicate there becomes an indefinite negative term, and there lies the problem. And there you cannot apply the categories. So there lies the fallacy with respect to the quality. And I was just thinking how to account for the relation. You see, again, when we apply the categories, we can take, say, the self as as a continuous mechanism or continuous, say, conscious flow, as you say. But when you talk of reason, okay, beyond the categories, now we cannot talk of the cause-effect relationship. We cannot talk of a reciprocal action. We cannot talk of, say, inherence and subsistence. So there lies the problem. So there lies the fallacy with respect to relation. And while talking of the logical self, you very well said it is the highest possibility. But when we go beyond, when we come across the rational self, well, I don't know whether I would be right to say, when Kant goes beyond the understanding to reason, would it be right to call their self a rational self or a metaphysical self that Dr. Anurima was pointing out? Now then there lies the problem of, say, the possibility of existence. So logical possibility, the possibility we are talking of, that sort of possibility maybe is doubtful. So there lies different fallacies, and how, and this is how I feel, what I could understand from the talk of Professor Das, that logically can't try to show the fallacious statements with respect to self by going beyond the categories. This is what I understood. Well, the audience, the participants have their own, can have their own submissions, and we can have a good discussion on that. And one more thing, just I don't know what they say, what Professor Das was saying, that reason for Kant is inference. Would the self, if at all, we associate self with reason, would it be right to call, say, as far as experience is concerned, as far as knowledge claim is concerned, well, logical self, empirical self, well and good. Now what Dr. Anuruma was pointing out in the course of the last session, metaphysical self. Is that metaphysical self the rational self? When you talk of reason, is that the rational self? That is a question that comes to my mind. When people here are free to comment on the talk of Professor Das, and let us discuss on that. Thank you, Professor Das, for a very good lecture. Thank you very much. Now, anybody who wants to say something on the issue, or add something to this, so that we can have a discussion on this. Well, I see some questions.
Hello, Dr. Rao. Okay, one question that is asked by Srabani Madam. The question is, when we are talking about exactly the same question was asked by Dr. Bhattacharya in the last session, that when we are discussing about Upanishadic concept of self, whether we just believe that or we have any claim for that. It's very good question, and this question is repeated again and again. Yes, Upanishads also claim. They also claim that they also claim the metaphysical or the permanent self. But their claim is a metaphysical claim. They claim that there is pure consciousness, and there are modifications of consciousness, and we all belong to different modifications. Suppose we shall discuss the modifications like the Jagrat, Supna, Susupti, and Turiya is the highest form of consciousness. So we are in different modifications of consciousness. So they claim that Aham Brahmasmi, I am that pure consciousness, and I am going through different phases of consciousness, different levels of consciousness. So how can I understand that I am in the Jagrat state? Because I am pure, because I have pure consciousness, I understand that I am in Jagrat, and that is the real knowledge. There are two types of people. Someone is in Jagrata, but he fails to understand that he is in Jagrata. He thinks that I am complete in Jagrata state. But the wise person thinks that he is in Jagrata state, but that is not real, that is appearance. So now the claim is, how can I know my limitation? How can I know my limitation? If I am not pure consciousness, then how can I know my limitation? So I am that pure consciousness in Jagrata state. I am that pure consciousness in the dream state. I am that pure consciousness in the waking state. So this is the Upanishadic claim of a pure consciousness or Atman or Brahman. That is the point. So, but critical philosophers like Immanuel Kant, they think that we should start our inquiry from epistemology, from the source of human knowledge, so that begins from experience. So this is the difference. Upanishadic thinkers claim that our knowledge begins from consciousness, and critical philosophers think that our knowledge begins from experience. Those who claim that our knowledge begins from experience, they claim that this is our common sense view, this is our pragmatic view, this is our practical view, this is everybody's view, this is everybody's philosophy. This is not philosophy at all, because this is common sense. Because we can't know anything without experience. Okay, but when Upanishadic thinkers claim metaphysics, they, because they are great seers, from their intuitive power, from their realization, they know the differences, they know the discriminations, they know the distinctions. I am not this, not this, not this, not this. I am something else, which is not this, not neti, 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 neti. This is a way of understanding the reality, including myself. Reality means I am also real, aham brahmasmi. So this is a metaphysical claim. So I told that there are two types of starting point of philosophical discussion. We can start from metaphysics, and we can start from epistemology. I agree with Dr. Bhattacharya and Dr. and Sravani Madam. Truly speaking, I am a Vedantist. I believe in Vedanta. So because I am discussing about Immanuel Kant, I am very much critical, and I shall justify him, and I shall go through the common sense view, and I shall claim that yes, our knowledge begins from experience. But when I shall teach Upanishad, I shall say, no, I am that pure consciousness. Today I fail to know, but tomorrow I shall realize myself. So we are going in that pursuit. The ultimate pursuit is the pursuit of a pure consciousness. Thank you, madam. When we are discussing about, are you hearing? Are you hearing, Dr. Rao?
Sir, yes, Dr. Anurima wants to say the same thing. Welcome, Dr. Anurima. Well, madam, you want to say something?
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir. It was again so fantastic hearing you. It's such analytic discussion, absolutely so thorough, academic. discourse are very rare actually. So it was so enjoyable. Uh, I have some problem in considering, like we talk on epistemology and we talk on logic, we talk on metaphysics. Um, I cannot say like this, I think. I mean, it is my consideration. Like, I can talk on epistemology, I can talk on metaphysics, but I talk through logic. I don't talk on logic. Okay, so logic is nothing to be talked of. It is something to be talked by. So logic is supposed to be the method, and logic should not be having any boundary, like it should be confined within epistemology, and logic has no access to metaphysics. This is somehow confining logic somewhere. So logic is not supposed to be having some subject matter of itself. Okay, it is supposed to be a methodology, as you said finally while concluding. So it can be like accessed according to what is the context. So talking on logic was something like it could not fit my rationality. So please clarify if you can. And secondly, when you were talking of logical fallacies, like the paralogisms you were talking of, how does it become a fallacy? It fails to establish the metaphysical self. So, but logically, is it fallacious? I mean, the fallacy will be counted if the logic fails to infer the thing. It will be counted as a fallacy if we fail to infer the thing. But as an inference, do I need to certify the existence of the thing, or to confirm the existence of the thing which is inferred? So inferring should not be confirming the existence also. It can be just the inferring. So a fallacy can be a fallacy if it is failing as an inference. But a fallacy should not be a fallacy if it cannot confirm the existence. I don't know whether I am clear or not, I could make myself clear. So please, sir.
Very good question. Now the point, no, the point is whether we are discussing on logic or by logic. It is logic. If it is logic, then there is no scope for metaphysics. This is the point of Immanuel Kant. If we take logic in that sense, generally we study logic as deductive logic, inductive logic, rules of logic, rules of inference, fallacies of inference. If we take logic in that sense, that does not permit any metaphysical discussion. You are claiming, and Dr. Andres Rabani Madam is also claiming indirectly, that metaphysics has also its own logic. But we are not discussing that logic here. When we are discussing about logic, we discuss about the formal logic, the rules of logic, and logic in the sense of inference, inferential rules. That if such and such the premises, then this conclusion will follow. In that scheme, anything we can claim that is a logical claim. So we can't speak about ontology. Okay, this is the point. Not only about God, not only about self, even we cannot discuss about world. World means the thing in itself. Suppose this is a bottle, the apparent bottle we are claiming. We can't claim the real bottle. So God is something separate thing. We are not worried about God. Even we can't claim the reality. We are always in the logical format. That means, and this logic is the transcendental logic in the sense because they are a priori forms of a human understanding. Beyond that, nothing can be claimed. This is the view of Immanuel Kant. Okay, suppose we shall say that the metaphysics has its own logic, then it is a separate discussion. But the logic, now I am asking a question. The logic in the deductive logic and inductive logic, if we discuss logic in that sense, we can't give a satisfactory explanation about metaphysics. It will be admitted by all. But we can speak of metaphysics in a different way. For example, that I have that intuitive experience, I have that realization. By that, I can explain, and it is not necessary to explain because my realization is my realization. I don't need to explain my realization. If I realize that I am Brahman, you can't understand because you don't have that realization. Rama has no such realization. So such realization is beyond logic. We can't give any satisfactory definition or explanation about our realization. Upanishadic thinkers, seers, they give focus on our realization. So self-realization is the highest knowledge which is not confined to logical thought or binary thoughts or laws of thoughts. So that is another type of intuitive experience by which we can claim the supreme self. Okay, but generally as we understand logic, on logic or by logic, through that we can't establish any metaphysics. But we have a scope for metaphysics in different way. Immanuel Kant says it is faith. Upanishads say it is self-realization. Okay, thank you. For example, I am telling the last sentence. Suppose you really realize that you are Brahman, you don't need any logic, on or by. You don't need to explain that you are, or to convince others that you are Brahman. Because if you try to convince others, they can't understand through any logic because it is not in the purview of logic, because it is your self-realization. That is your realization. Your realization cannot be realized by another. Therefore, we need yoga sadhana. Therefore, we need spiritual practice. So, when we are discussing all these things, we land on Indian tradition. I love Indian tradition. When I shall speak Indian philosophy, all these things will come. But strictly, when we are talking about logic, we can't talk about metaphysics. If we talk, then it will be fallacious. And your second question was paralogism, how it is fallacious. As Dr. Rao beautifully explained that totality, quality, relation and possibility or modality, all these things are discussed logically. But we mistake these logical terminology to assess or explain the metaphysics. Logical totality is not the metaphysical totality. Logical quality is not the metaphysical quality. As infinite is a logical quality. That does not mean Brahman is infinite. This is a mismatching of concepts. Similarly, relation, there is a continuous logical self. It is admitted by Immanuel Kant. But from that continuity, you don't misinterpret that there is a permanent self. So that is a logical possibility. So from logical possibility, you don't misinterpret that is the Brahman is the all possibility. This misinterpretation is fallacious. So logic should not be misused. Okay, this is my submission. Dr. Rao can speak better whether I am right or wrong, because I am also going through this text. We are all learners. Thank
Sir,
you.
and you made another claim that reason is not logic, differentiation of logic with reasoning. Can you please, I mean,
No,
what
here Kant is using the word religion in a very different sense. Okay, here Kant is saying that religion is a free movement of mind which can go, which can misuse logic. When we are talking about logic, that is the purview of sensibility and understanding. Beyond sensibility and understanding, there is no logical function. Immanuel Kant here using the word reason in a different sense, that reason has free wings to fly, misusing logic or going beyond logic, and that lands on illusions. So reason generally, as we understand in the philosophy of Descartes, Spinoza and Leibniz, and reason as we understand in logic, here the meaning of reason is something different. Here reason leads to illusions. Anything that leads to illusions, that is logic, that is reason. This is a specific meaning of reason according to Kant. So when we are discussing about Immanuel Kant, we have to understand the concepts according to the dictionary of Immanuel Kant, how he understands and how he interprets some such concepts.
so is it that reason is a wider sphere and logic is included within reason? Is logic at all within reason or not? I mean, you can say that reason has a wider sphere, so it includes something more than logic also, that is fine. But logic is not there at all in the reason. I mean, logic is no part of reason. Is that the claim?
Logic and reason, they are related in the general sense of logic and reason. Logic and reason and reasoning, these three are related to each other in the general sense of logic. But here Immanuel Kant is interpreting the word reason in a different sense. In a different sense, he is saying reason functions when logic fails. That means beyond sensibility and understanding, if our mind operates, that operation is called reason. So here he is using the word reason in a different sense. But what you are asking, I agree with you, that logic, reason and reasoning, they are related to each other. That we understand. But here Immanuel Kant is using the word reason, which is beyond the purview of logic. Therefore it becomes fallacious. Okay?
This is a very peculiar stipulation of Kant, we can understand, no?
No, he has used this.
Understood logic in a very confined way, within a particular schema. I mean, he has a schematization of the concept of logic itself, isn't it? So this is his stipulative idea of logic, I consider.
No, not stipulative, not speculative. Here also a sense. You see, we are all free to speculate. We are all free to speculate.
Actually, what Kant is trying to do is he is trying to give a form to our thought, a structure to our thought. That's why when he's talking of logic, and he's confining to understanding itself, and when he talks of reason, he is going beyond, means there no rules of logic apply. Your metaphysics is your metaphysics. So there the conditioning is not there. There are no categories to address to your metaphysics or my metaphysics. So that's how Kant is giving a scope to go beyond your own understanding to grasp something that is beyond your sensibility and beyond your understanding. That's why he has given a scope to reason, so that somehow there would be an element for going beyond your categories during the last class. Okay, that's my take actually, because Kant is talking of reason distinct from understanding only because normally we think understanding, reasoning to be logical. So all these things we take in the common parlance, but Kant is not doing that. So he is restricting understanding to the logical understanding. When he's talking of reason, he is going beyond the categories. That Kuti is not grasped by reason, because your reason, when he's talking of reason, he is floating from the structure. He is moving away from the structure in order to encompass maybe the totality, the metaphysical, maybe. And that's what he has done during the course of the later treatise, the practical reason. That, okay, maybe. That's the point.
In region, we can accommodate different claims at a time. For example, suppose a theist will claim God exists, and a atheist will claim God does not exist. Similarly, so here there are two claims, and the two persons have their own reason to justify why God exists and why God does not exist. Similarly, among the theists, suppose you believe in one God and another person believes in many gods. Here, both the persons have their reasons why he believes in one God and why another person believes in many gods. Immanuel Kant says reason has that scope to claim even the contradictory claims. We can claim the contradictory claims because there is no role of logic. But in the purview of logic, there is no scope for contradiction. There is no scope for absurdity. There is no scope for anything illogical, illusory. There is no scope. When you go beyond sensibility and understanding, when you go beyond logical format, when you are free to use your reason by your own way, you have your own reason, and that may vary from other people's reason. Does not it happen in our practical life? Suppose I can't interfere in your personal life because in your personal life, in your personal beliefs, you have your own reason. Similarly, I have my own reasons. So here reasons are not logical. According to Immanuel Kant is using the reason in a very specific sense. So since understanding is logical, understanding is logical, but reason leads to illusions. Illusion means suppose you have a specific reason for your claim, that is your illusion, because that is not universal. It is very clear. Whatever is logical, that is universal. Whatever is logical, that will be accepted by you, that shall be accepted by me. But your reason may not be accepted by me, because that is your personal reason. Okay, this is the difference. Therefore, you are a theist, I am a theist. Therefore, you believe in one God, I believe in many gods. Therefore, you believe in a particular, you have your likes and dislikes, I have my likes and dislikes. And not only we have that, we have reason for that. Okay, so that is the privacy of reason. But that privacy is not in logic. Logic is universal. That shall be accepted by all. So when Immanuel Kant is speaking about epistemological mechanism, he is talking about the universal mechanism that nobody can be escaped from it. But in reason, you have your own autonomy, you have your own privacy, you have your own likes and dislikes, and you have reasons for that. So this is the difference between reason and logic according to Immanuel Kant. But in the general sense of logic, reason and reasoning, they are related. But here Immanuel Kant using the word reason in a specific sense. Am I right, Dr. Rao?
Yes, sir. I feel well when you talk of logic, logic has a fixed structure and we go by that structure. When you talk of reason, it doesn't have a fixed structure. So
Very
that,
good.
so that's the,
Very
that's the
good.
point.
Absolutely. Logic
Very
is all
good.
about formatting. This was a very wonderful comment, like you were saying, of logical formatting. So this actually was the thing which was so convincing that the format is important. It needs a proper formatting. Logic needs a formatting or structure, what Dr. Rao is saying. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Anurima, for joining us. Actually, you raised very beautiful questions, and that makes the discussion very lively. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well,
We shall conclude now.
yes, we don't have any more questions in the chat box. Now I request Swarnalata Madam to propose the formal vote of thanks.
Namaskar to all. Today we discussed Transcendental Dialectics Part 1. In this session, we received an idea that reason creates illusion when functions without sensibility. We have such three basic illusions in our mind. They are soul, world, and God. Today we discussed about the illusion of soul. In the next session, we shall discuss other illusions of reason. We are all thankful to Pramod sir. We are thankful to Dr. K. Om Narayan Rao sir for his nice synopsis of the talk. We are all happy to know that Dr. Rao sir has got promotion in his service recently. He deserves all promotions and appreciations for his work and dedication. He is the man behind the successful move of philosophical discussion. We are really grateful to him. We are grateful to all participants for being with us in this session, and I request you all to attend webinar program tomorrow in Philosophy Family. Thank you all. Pranam. Over to Dr. Rao sir.
Thank you very much, Madam, for your kind words. Thank you for your message of congratulations. Thank you so much. Well, I should thank all the participants, especially Dr. Anurima and Dr. And Sramani Mishra Madam for their valuable questions and the discussions that followed. So I request Dr. Anurima to participate tomorrow too, and I request her to be a regular participant because her questions really raise beautiful discussion and really it's a
Thank you so much,
asset
sir.
for
I'm
the
so
philosophy
honored.
family.
I'm so
Thank
honored.
you. Thank
It
you
is
so
all
much.
our pleasure. I mean, we are always a student of philosophy, and the philosophy is always a passion for all of us. Okay, thank you
Okay,
so
but
much.
thank you so much for being so kind to philosophy family, for attending and raising so beautiful questions. So thanking all and the speaker, Professor Das, who takes a lot of pain to prepare himself and so regularly to present the lecture so regularly. So I should thank the speaker and all the participants for making this webinar so successful. Thank you very much, and I should thank Swarnalata Tripathi Madam for being connected to philosophy family through the platform of Wisdom Intellectual Forum, Puri. So thank you, Swarna Madam, once again, and thanking all. Let us declare this, now wind up this session. Thank you so much. Namaskar and good night, everybody.